Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this glorious setting of St Laurence Church here in Stroud. I am Tony Davey, Councillor Tony Davey, Mayor of Stroud, and I would like to formally open this meeting of electors of Stroud, convened in accordance with Local Government Act 1972. I'm not that dull. There are things that I have to say that are part of the process that we go through. I'm Chair of the Town Council and I'm required to preside over this meeting, which you, the people of Stroud, have convened. I would like to stress that this is your meeting, a meeting of local government electors of the town. It is not a Stroud Town Council meeting, but we are facilitating it. I'm very proud to do so this evening. Anyone on the Stroud Parish Electoral Register has the right to vote at this meeting. You will have been given a voting card to do so. For everyone else, you're still welcome to take part. Whilst you cannot vote, you're welcome to ask questions and, of course, fully join in with the debate. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to consider a proposal of Stroud District Council to close Stratford Park Lido, or, before anybody says it, the outdoor pool as it is also often known. One and the same. I'm glad we cleared that up. An asset of significant importance to this community. And this situation is one that's quite rapidly changing, as on Thursday the 16th of April at the District Council Strategy and Resources Committee, an amendment to reopen the Lido at the earliest safe and responsible opportunity was passed, which will be guided by a series of reports not predicted to be complete before June 26 on the last update I had. So whilst changing course from the original plans and the point that this meeting was called, the timescales at the present moment remain unclear, but maybe we'll get some additional clarity on that today. Please can you also note that this meeting is being filmed. We are going to run this meeting BBC Question Time style. And in a few moments, I will hand you over to our moderator for tonight. But before I do, I would like to say that I have been impressed, moved, heartened and humbled by the very many stories I've heard from residents about your feelings and experience of Stratford Park outdoor pool. You may have seen a community board as you entered, just over here, and please feel free to add any stories, thoughts, comments and experiences to it, and I hope that there will be an opportunity to feed that in to our Lido's future in some way. It is equally moving to see so many of you here tonight, and giving up your free time for something you feel so strongly about. Many people are put off from engaging in local government, but tonight we truly have democracy in action. You called this meeting, we're holding this meeting, and it is your voice that must be heard tonight. And I very much hope that together we can begin to formulate a positive way forward for the pool. Now, I know there's a great strength of feeling here tonight, but I ask everyone that we keep our debate both respectful and constructive. As a town council, we have attempted to bring you a panel of representatives and experts I hope can help frame the debate and share some of their experiences too. They've also given their free time to be here, and I thank them very much for doing so. A little housekeeping before you get a rest from my voice. If at any point you need to take a break from the meeting, there is a quiet room at the back of the hall here. Please feel free to use this at any time. Staff will be on hand to help you. They will be wearing Stroud Town Council lanyards like this. Toilets can be found in St Laurence Church Hall, which is just outside the main door over there. And again, please ask staff to direct you if needed. And if you need a glass of water, there's a water station just over there. In the unlikely event of a fire, please leave the church calmly via one of the 3 marked fire exits, where the quiet room is, through the main door, or the one that's just behind me to my left. The assembly point is outside in the shambles. Many of you have already sent in questions for the panel, and I hope there will be time for additional questions to be asked at the end. Please do raise your hand if you would like to ask a question in the debate, and wait for a member of staff to bring you a microphone. Once we've got to the end of the questions and discussion, the moderator will hand back over to me and invite any motions. There'll be a brief break whilst we take some of those, or proposals for next steps relating to the Lido. And if there are any, then I'm sure there are, parish residents will be able to vote upon them. Now, I'll remind you of this a bit closer to the time. None of this is legally binding, but it is still really important that you have your say and have an influence. And I'll give you some more details on that later. So without further delay, I will now hand you over to our moderator for the evening, Faye Hatcher. Faye has worked in the media for over 20 years. She is a former BBC Radio Gloucestershire presenter and BBC Radio 4 producer, and now works as a freelance journalist for the independent news and events publication Stroud Times. Faye has also lived here in Stroud for 10 years, I believe. So, enough of me for a while, and over to yourself. Thank you, Faye.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. A very good evening to you all and a very warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be hosting tonight's debate. I'd just like to echo Tony's words. For this to be a successful and inclusive debate, could I ask our audience members and panellists to be respectful? If people talk over each other, nobody will be able to hear anything, and we don't want that. Thank you for coming tonight, and to everyone who submitted questions in advance. We've had a huge amount. We'll try and get through as many as possible in the next hour, but apologies if we don't get to yours. Your questions have been grouped into various themes, and most people have asked me to read their question on their behalf. After the pre-submitted questions, we will hand over to you, our audience, and take questions from the floor. So let's get started, and to our panel, let's give them a very warm welcome. So you've already met Councillor Tony Davey already. So Heath, if you'd like to introduce yourself, your title, and a little bit about what you do, please.
Thanks, Faye. So I'm Heath Gunter, the Deputy CEO of Stroud Town Council. I lead the team at the moment on delivering our 5-year plan, which has just started this month. And I've got over 10 years experience of running indoor swimming pools, so I do have some knowledge of running pools from an operational point of view.
Hi, I'm Caroline Malloy. Can you hear me okay? I am Caroline Malloy. I'm part of Save Our Lido Stroud, which is a new group that was set up about a month ago in response to the council's announcement a month ago of potential closure. We are a non-political party aligned group of Lido users, or if you prefer, outdoor pool users. We use it, we love it. I personally have been living in Stroud for 15 years. It's been a big part of my every summer here. I can remember when you could still get chips from the hack.
My name's Alan George. I'm from Wootton Under Edge, and we went through a similar exercise to this back in 2010. What happened then was the Stroud District Council decided they could no longer support the pool in Wootton, but they did give us the opportunity to see if it could be run as a community enterprise. So I was involved with a local ginger group associated with the pool, and we got together with the town council and decided that we'd have a look at it. We did a feasibility study. We came out with 3 main issues. One was the cast iron pipe work underground. Another was the money that we needed. We needed $28,000 to pay for our salaries and utilities. And the third thing, was there anyone who was capable and willing to take on responsibility for running the pool? Because if there are accidents there, that person is in a very difficult position. So we went through that. We ended up having a referendum in the town where the town voted to raise its own council tax to pay for running the pool, and then we took it from there.
Hi, my name's Tim Temple. I work for the national membership organisation called Locality. Locality is a network of we support local community organisations to be strong and successful. For the last 2-3 years, we've been helping to deliver a government pot of funding to help community organisations take on their assets. And one that I was involved in was supporting Portishead Lido. They actually already had responsibility for their pool, but they were going through a similar type of process looking at refurbing their space. Before that, I spent 10 years working in sport development. I spent 9/11 consulting on swimming pool closures way back, sort of 25 years ago, sitting in a library, having a similar type of conversation about what we should keep open, what we shouldn't. And then I spent a few years distributing lottery funding, including for Stroud.
Hello everyone, my name is Chloe Turner. I'm the leader of the District Council, also a county councillor, but wearing my district hat tonight. Like many people in the room, I've swum in the Lido for a very long time. We used to come and visit my granddad in Stroud when I was little. He actually used to run the pool in the 60s when he was master of the parks. These days, still a swimmer, very slow swimmer, but love the outdoor pool, as we call it in my family. And yeah, really hope that we can keep it.
Hi, I'm Keith Gerard. I'm a Strategic Director for Communities with the District Council. Including within that is responsibility for our leisure services team, which operate at Active Lifestyle Stroud and Dursley, and of course the outdoor pool. But my background, and within that, housing too, and the museum, so quite a broad remit. My own personal background actually is though in sport and leisure. I've got over 30 years experience working in leisure. I ran leisure services for the Liverpool City Council and all the sports and leisure facilities for Aberdeen City Council. So though my remit is quite broad, my background and my professional background is in sport and leisure more than anything else.
Hello everyone, I'm Martin Brown. I'm District Councillor for Bisley, which includes Eastham and Oakridge. I've been that since 2021, and on the District Council I'm Chair of the Community Services and Licensing Committee, which has responsibility for, among other things, all the leisure services that Keith just referred to, including Stratford Park and the museum and the leisure centre and the Lido and also the Dursley, everyone active. Active Lifestyles, the Dursley Leisure Centre.
Would you mind passing the microphone back up? It's a bit like a relay baton, isn't it? Thank you very much to our panellists. We really do appreciate your time tonight. So thank you very much. That's our panel tonight. We did invite friends of Stratford Park Lido to take part, but they were unable to put anyone forward. As you've heard, we have 3 representatives from Stroud District Council tonight and 2 from the Town Council. So to keep everything moving, we'll only be hearing from 1 representative for each question. So if you can decide amongst yourselves who's the best to answer the question, please. We're going to allow around 2 minutes for each panellist to answer the questions so we keep on track tonight. Naturally, some questions are going to be more relevant to specific members of the panel, but each member of the panel will have the opportunity to answer the question if they wish. So, is everybody ready? Okay, let's go with our first question then. And this is under the theme of health and well-being. And this has been submitted by Tracy White. For my concern is for our children and young people who have no access to an outdoor pool without relying on parents to take them elsewhere. We have a huge rise in child obesity and a mental health crisis. What extracurricular activities are going to be available for our children throughout the summer to replace the closure of the pool? Who would like to start by answering that question? Somebody from Stroud District Council. There you go.
Is this on you mean? I mean, there's a whole range of activities that we run through the Active Lifestyle Stroud and in Dursley and in the park itself, and through the museum, a wide range of activities for all ages, and particularly during school holidays, and thinking about the summer period. You know, we've got a really strong track record of providing free, in almost all cases. There are some things that will have costs associated with them, but nearly always, wherever we can, free, accessible activities for school-age children, for younger children, and for parents. That we run as a matter of course, and we're proud to run. I think they're well received, they're well liked. We respond to feedback on them. We're always trying to improve, and they cover a whole range of physical activities, as well as other things too. You'll be familiar with what goes on at the museum. So quite a strong programme of work that we run, and that was going to continue, and we plan to continue that this summer, as always.
Tracy talks about a huge rise in childhood obesity and a mental health crisis. People swim for lots of different reasons, don't they, Caroline?
Yeah, I'm not used to speaking in the mic, so bear with me. Yeah, I think that question really, Tracy's question really nails why our campaign ask from the start has been, please do what you can to get this open this summer. We've set out a course of works of how that's possible. And the importance, although we know that, you know, there's no chance they're going to get the pool open for the end of May, but we've been pleading with them to get it open in time for school holidays, because there isn't that much for young people to do. I've heard that from so many parents. I'm not disputing that there are good activities put on by the town council, but in terms of where young people can just heard from so many parents about children, you know, very excited that they're reaching the age when they're 11, then they're allowed to go there by themselves. You know, that's quite a milestone for generations of children in Stroud. I've been myself there. I mostly go there when the young people go, and I see how they use it, and they're diving in and they're showing off, and they're not on their phones, you know, and it's fresh air, and it's just a joy to see. And actually seeing people of different ages interact, I think, is also, you know, really vital for our community. So I hope that we will get this open for the summer holidays, if not before.
Would anybody else from the panel like to answer that question?
Yeah, may I just add something to that? I mean, the implication seemed to be that we need a replacement for the Lido. We are, as you've heard and will continue to hear, hoping and working to get the Lido open this summer, even if it's... and my hope is that it will be by school holidays, if not before then. You'll hear more about that. And I also wanted to mention that we're now, and this also comes from my committee, developing a play strategy. We recently hired a new officer to work on that, to develop a play strategy for the district, which will be about, among other things, that sort of issue, you know, the problem of childhood obesity, and providing more play opportunities for children.
Okay, on with our next question. Again, this is under the theme of health and well-being. This comes from Sarah Holmes. Have you looked into the long-lasting negatives from other towns that have lost their Lidos? Alan and Tim, I think you probably have something to say about this.
So I guess our benefit is that we did something at Wooden Pool and we managed to get it running, and I've come along to try and help give some experience and practicality in achieving that. So in terms of Lidos that have been closing, I don't really have much knowledge of that. I mean, they do close and some of them get shabby, but what we need is a system in Stroud where you've got an asset, not a liability. Swimming pool that's really going to work, and if you get the right structure behind that, then you're in a position to make it work.
Tim, you've just helped save Portishead Lido. Can you tell us more about that?
That's kind. I think that overstates it. And in context of the meeting, I better not. Portishead Lido wasn't at risk of being lost because of political process or lack of funding and getting it to a state of disrepair. So the broader point there is less. It's quite difficult to say what's the opportunity cost, what happened as a result of something that wasn't there anymore. So I I'm not quite sure how to answer it from that point of view. But I think what we're talking about here is it is possible to quantify the social value, the value that an asset, be it a swimming pool or any other community facility, offers to the local community. So I would frame that, or I can only really frame my response as, it is possible for us to have a look at the positive benefits. You can have a look at the health benefits. You can have a look at the emotional benefits of blue space, of green space. You can have a look at the variety of benefits of swimming as a sport and as a leisure activity, and obviously as a Lido, then more of an amenity and a place that you can go to. So it is possible to do research into that. And an awful lot of the time, the sport and leisure industry has taken that type of approach to justify continuing to have assets. Or, where it isn't there, to no longer have assets if the social value doesn't add up to the same amount as the cost, and there are other opportunities that would achieve the same. They're sometimes the difficult decisions that people need to make. So, but in terms of what one can do, then it is possible to have a look at the social value. That's also important, a consideration if you're going to change ownership from the current district council as well to any other body, which I'm sure we're going to come on to. But social value and understanding the impact for Stroud is something that we'd have to get our collective heads around so that you can justify transferring an asset.
Thank you, Tim. Would somebody from Stroud District Council or the Town Council like to respond to that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we haven't done the exercise of specifically looking at other places where the pool has gone, but I'm very conscious that one of the pools in Gloucester is gone, Swindon Oasis, where I used to swim as a kid, is gone, and of, you know, the fact of the Lido being an affordable place for families to go in the summer, you don't have to look at too much data to see that's very bad news. And I completely take the point that Caroline has been talking about in some of the campaigning about the fact that once it's shut, it's more difficult then to get it back open again. So that continuity is really important. And we're responding to that in the fact that we are throwing everything at trying to get it open this summer. But yes, it is a really, really important piece of social well-being infrastructure, as you might call it in municipal terms, but just somewhere cheap and fun for families to go, and we recognise that.
Okay, Caroline? Can we just make sure the microphones are right under your nose? It's directional mic. Yeah. So everybody can hear you. Slightly angled like that. That's it.
Like that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Spot on.
Thank you for microphone technique training. I just wanted to come in because I did do a bit of research. In fact, I was looking last night about towns that have lost their Lidos. There's about 30 campaigns at the moment desperately trying to reopen their Lidos. Some of them have been going on for a very long time. I think I read the other day about one in Ipswich where it had closed, somewhere like that. It had closed in 2003, and they're hoping it might reopen in 2029. So, wow. You know, and I've heard similar length periods. So I'm glad to hear Chloe acknowledge, you know, that the point that we've been making, that, you know, we're trying to keep it open this summer for two reasons. One is to save the summer for the points we've just been discussing, but also because it's so much, you know, it's so much more difficult to get it open if it closes, even just for one season. And just structurally as well as politically, it's not good for it to close. I just wanted to say one other point, actually, if I may, which is around you asked, I think the question was about the impact on towns. And I think I just want to say something at this point about heritage. You know, I've been out talking to so many people, and obviously this pool has, you know, this beautiful 30s deco heritage, and that's important. But actually the heritage that I've been hearing about is in people's hearts. You know, it's the stories that I've heard about that people who told me their parents learnt to swim in that pool and their children are getting used to deep water in that pool. And, you know, there's something, I've been in Stroud 15 years. I don't know how many people here are always lived in Stroud, but I think there's something really important for that continuity of heritage, that if we lose it, it would be a very, very sad thing.
Thank you all. Would you like to add?
I promise I'm going to be quick. I was just going to add that another part to this that really concerns me is what the alternatives are that may be chosen. We've got canals, they are not a safe place to swim. We have our rivers, you've seen the documentaries, so have I. the lakes up at Woodchester. These are all places that people could choose otherwise. This is a place where one of the best roles that I get of the year is to go and open Stroud Show, and it's normally really good weather. I hope it's going to be again this year. And you just see kids queuing around the block to use it. They want to swim. The appeal of swimming indoors is nowhere near as good. Being able to use this sort of thing to be able to learn in deep but safe water is really important. So our heritage is important, but our future heritage too, and making sure that there is a really safe facility for our young people to use. Massively important. The alternatives, they are not good.
Thank you all. Okay, on to our next question. And just to remind you, this is under the theme of health and well-being. This is from Anon. I would really love to know the breakdown of figures for last summer with regards adults versus children using the outdoor pool. The council should absolutely be able to provide these figures despite them saying they can't. You pay for either an adult or children's ticket online. So it's a very simple calculation. Have we got those figures?
We haven't got those figures, but if we've said that we can't provide them, I will look again and make those available to the best of my ability based on the information that we got.
It's good to know who's using the pool. You need to know that there's a demand for a community asset like this. Tim, is this something that's important to know before you start investing lots of money?
I don't know. I don't know if it's important all of the time. It's important that we have some sort of understanding of demographic breakdown. But I don't think last year's usage figures are necessarily going to be the driver for whether or not the asset is maintained and done up. What it's going to require is a really good business plan that's going to demonstrate that people want to use it in the future, and who they are, and how you're going to target different groups, and how you're going to increase the number of people using the facility. So it's not that it's unhelpful not knowing, but it may not be the key piece of information in order to move forward. So I'm not pushing back against the question, but if we were to do a business plan to say, we're going to save this asset, this is what we're going to do, we would want to know and understand who is going to want to use it in the future and the proportions of people. And it's not only an age breakdown. You'd be wanting to look at quite a few other characteristics.
Alan, is this something that you had to consider when investing in Wootton Outdoor Pool?
Yes, well, what happens is that we do take this data. I haven't got it to hand, but it's in our annual report.
I have how many people go to that pool in the summer. It's 850 people go to that pool in the summer from Stroud and around surrounding areas. And you raise £25,000 every summer from 850 people going.
How do you know that information?
It's on the internet.
Okay, continue.
It's so simple. This is what I'm a little concerned about. You know why I'm saying so, that you don't have your facts. And like, if you open the pool a little longer, there's only open for 2 or 3 months. You open it another month on each end, you're bringing in 50 grand a year.
Okay, with respect, we're going to open questions. Okay. Okay, but we are opening questions to the audience with respect. With respect. With respect. There'll be plenty of time for questions from the audience. Okay, all right. All right. Please raise this. Please raise this in a second.
And you have showed us just now, in the last 5 minutes, that you don't.
So I was making reference to what happens at Wootton Pool, because I don't know what happens at Stroud. So my colleague here might have an answer for you.
I do take your point about the shortness of opening. the figures that I've seen the council refer to in their reports are that there were 31,000 swims there last year. They don't know, of course, how many unique swimmers there is, but yeah, that's the figures they have. There is an absence of information, I think, since it's been sort of in-sourced from everyone active. I think that would be fair to say.
Has anybody else read the feasibility study from 2017? Okay, it's quite a long read. I read it yesterday. Figures to people visiting the Lido have been dwindling since 2017. How would you respond to that?
Actually, it's quite interesting. There's different reports flying around. There was a report conducted by, I think, Keith's department at the end of last season, which said that the Lido had outperformed its expectations. That actually, I think I don't know, but my guess would be that the additional lane swimming they've added in the mornings might have added to their figures. There is also a separate issue where people who are members, their membership is not always counted, those admissions. I'm a member. I've walked in myself because there's no one on the gate. I'm not doing anything wrong there, just to say I've paid in advance. I'm a member of the whole leisure centre. The Lido isn't getting that money isn't going into the current business plan, so there's lots of issues about the figures and the reporting. That much is fair. But I think it's, as we've just heard from Tony, it's not true that it's not popular. It is extremely popular, and it would be even more popular if it was open for longer hours.
Okay, would anybody else from the panel like to respond? Else we'll move on. Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to build up a body of data over a period of years. I mean, clearly it is weather dependent to an extent, and it's not operating at its full potential at the moment, and we recognise that. And last year was a great year, and there have been other years in recent years that haven't been as successful. But I guess the point that Tim makes is really that in putting together a full business plan, which is, I hope, a stage that we will get to soon in thinking about the longer term future, we will need to be thinking about that full potential and who are those people who aren't currently using the pool and could be.
Alan.
I think it's reasonable to expect success, because when we took over Wootton Pool, the amount of swims was getting very low. But that was because it was so difficult to operate by Stroud District Council at a distance. But when we had the local people running it, then the offer has increased every year ever since. So if you get this into your own hands and you deal with it yourself, you make it an asset, then you can increase the viability of it.
Alan, I'm just going to go back to my original question. Did you know there was a demand to keep the pool open? You must have had some data to rely on.
Well, I would refer you to the referendum that we held. In a town of 4,000 voters, 1,000 said they raised their council tax, and 100 said they wouldn't want to.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because everybody, in the end, agreed to a rise in council tax. And that's how you managed to keep the entrance fee so low.
It's not what people normally do. They don't
Microphone.
increase their own tax voluntarily.
How popular would that be in Stroud? Can we just have a quick raise of hands? Interesting. That's interesting. Okay, we're going to move on to a different subject now, and it's transparency. We're going to take questions at the end, okay. This is from Jenny. Why is a full maintenance and health and safety assessment, check and report not done immediately after the close of season, so that any actions that come out of that can be done during the close of the season, and if required, brought to committee, council, before next year's budget is set and agreed? What is the best practice for this, and what do Wootton Lido do? Very specific question for you there, Alan. Would you like to pick up?
So we just repeat that?
Yeah, so why is a full maintenance and health and safety assessment check and report not done immediately after the close of season?
Okay. So what happened, Stroud District Council came to us and said that they couldn't run it any longer, and at that point we got into looking at what was needed. And so we used various experts. We've got engineers on our voluntary group, and we've got swimming professionals, and we've got the officers at Stroud District Council, and we had some help from Dursley Pool. So everybody was trying to make it work. So we found out what we needed, and we ended up doing what I said, which was we needed to raise money. We had to worry about the cast iron pipes. We've now fixed that, and we had to find people who take responsibility.
And Alan, after every season, when you close for the season, do you then check what needs doing for the next season when you reopen again?
Yeah, I live, sleep and eat Wootton Pool.
Would somebody from Stroud District Council like to respond?
I'm beginning to know how that feels. Just a little bit of history. The District Council took over the operation of the Lido from everyone active in November 24. That was all the facilities that we had in Stratford Park. So the Stratford Park Leisure Centre was there and the Lido. And we certainly did some stock taking immediately then of the way the whole service ran. A lot of work on building staff teams and making sure that we ran the most effective and best quality service we could. And I'm sure those of you that use Active Lifestyle Stroud in that time will have seen the service really improve. And then we moved into the season, the first season that we operated the Lido directly as an organisation. And we certainly learned a lot from that. We learned a lot about the costs, we learned a lot about providing good quality service, and we learned a lot about the operational challenges that the Lido brings. And actually, coming back to the point about the end of the season, so now we're at the end of the season, last year, 2025, we did commission a comprehensive piece of work that looked at the work needed to deliver a good quality, sustainable Lido. And that took into account a lot of the physical issues that were required. And that was set in the context of affordability, good value for money, sustainability both environmentally and financially. And it happened alongside a piece of work which we've been doing, looking at the way we invest and support Stratford Park Leisure Centre itself. So we did do that work. As we analysed that and we looked at what that might mean in the broader sense, we realised that we needed to look very specifically about the health and safety of the Lido itself. And you will have all seen, I think you will have all seen, or you can see, the most recent report that we had that really did hone in and focus on some of the specific and immediate health and safety issues. The first time we passed over those, we looked at them in the context of a wider long-term sustainable investment. And that takes us to where we are today. What is really needed in health and safety terms to open the Lido this season against the backdrop of where we want to be in terms of long-term sustainability?
But some of those recommendations were laid out pretty simply in the feasibility study of 2017. So why hasn't anything happened since then?
I think it'd be wrong to say that nothing's happened since then.
But the big stuff, the stuff that needed immediate attention.
That's true. I mean, there's a whole range of things that could, and probably we would, with the benefit of hindsight, we could have done more a little bit longer ago. But actually, what we have tried to do is deliver and keep delivering the best quality Lido provision that we can, and we've done that. Actually, that's been happening for 90 years nearly. But there does come a point where a facility that is that old needs to be looked at for its next phase of life, and that's where we're at now, I think.
Who'd like to speak? Alan.
I'd just like to suggest it's best to look for solutions rather than blame.
Nobody can hear you.
I would echo that.
Just wait.
I would echo that. I think it is really important to look ahead. I think I just want to say one thing in terms of the questions that people have about the past. There's a phrase that's been going around my head as I've been sitting here, which is don't make the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I think that that's rather what's happened here. But, you know, we're going to hear more, I hope, about the plans going forward. So I'll leave it at that for now, I think.
Okay, our next question under the theme of transparency What maintenance work has been carried out on the Lido by the District Council whilst under the contractor arrangement? So that was with Active Lifestyles. Who would like to answer that question?
That's another one for me, I think. I mean, we worked in partnership with everyone active, the previous contractor, and we worked, our properties team worked in partnership with that to make, as far as we could see possible, the Lido a safe year-on-year place to go and bathe. Ultimately, the safety of the Lido sat with the operator, and we relied very much on the partnership that we did to make sure it was safe at the time. We didn't do any fundamental root and branch maintenance of the Lido because we wanted every year to try and keep that service going. And I think where we are now is we've sort of paused and said, actually, if this is going to have a sustainable life going forward, we need now to look at some of those fundamental pieces.
I think I'm just going to add to my previous point, actually, which is in terms of, health and safety checks, full checks, etc. I do want to give the council a bit of credit. Like, we've been, scrutinising them quite hard for the last month. We found, as in our campaign found, the engineer from Portishead, the pool that was mentioned earlier, by a bit of Stroud synchronicity, actually. And Stroud Council, to be fair, gave access to that very experienced Lido engineer that we had found and the engineers in our group, and they were able to go around and make an assessment, comparing what had been said by a health and safety guy with what the engineers and the people really experienced in pool Lidos needed. We've had to do that in the last month, and we've drawn up for them a schedule of how you get this open safely. Of course, people will have questions about why that didn't happen sooner and why there was this, other much bigger figure floating around on people's minds. But that plan is there now that would ameliorate all the risks. And I want to hear more about how that's going to be put into practice, I think.
Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to our next subject, which is the financing of the Lido. And this comes from Mark Mahoen. I think that's how you pronounce your surname. The former space that was the outdoor pool cafe was given to the nursery to use. I'd like to know if the money generated off the nursery goes back to the pool, and as this was always an asset belonging to the pool. The cafe, restaurant, that was flagged up in the feasibility report of 2017 as a great way to generate money, revenue that would go back to the Lido. So what happened?
Keith can come in on the specifics. As councillors, we don't get involved in the actual operational running of the pool. For safety reasons, that wouldn't be a good idea. But just in terms of, that's not really the way the council thinks about its leisure offer. It doesn't think all that bit belongs to the pool, and that we think about what is needed by residents at any one time. So I don't imagine that money, unfortunately, went back into the pool. What we do recognise is that a cafe would be a brilliant part of a Lido, and it doesn't have to be a fancy cafe. It could be someone coming in with a horse box, doing coffees, or a chip van. Maybe in time that will evolve into something more permanent. But yeah, I don't know whether Keith, you just want to add on that specific point about the.
No, the money would go more generally into our community services pot. Might be worth saying on the piece of finances. It costs quite a lot of money to operate the Lido, as you might imagine, and some income is generated, but it costs, give or take, there's a net loss or cost to the council of £80,000 to have the Lido open for 6 weeks. Costs £80,000, and that's with 30,000 users last summer, when we still needed to subsidise the running of the Lido to £80,000 just in terms of context. So that's a lot of cups of tea that we welcome. But just for context.
There's lots of different ways to generate money, though, through private hire. This all came out in the feasibility study. People were really keen to have other uses for the Lido, restaurants, cafes, like I say, private hire of the pool, use of the space for yoga. There's a whole list of things in the feasibility study, yet nothing has happened.
Can I just add, the issue at the moment is not about the revenue, the operating costs of the Lido. You know, we have in budget the money to operate the Lido this summer. The issue is about safely doing so. It's about the capital work. It's about the capital work needed. Of course, there are questions about going forward about having a cafe. That was in one of the proposals we considered recently, and a whole range of questions about the operating of the Lido. But that isn't the current issue, which is what's needed, what work is needed to safely open it, capital work.
Caroline, I know you want to come back on this.
I do, because I hear what Martin's saying, and Martin said the same to me, that this is not really about whether or not it can run at a profit or a loss day to day. But I mean, it doesn't help. Certainly I've seen over and over in the reports this figure quoted of, it runs at a loss of around 80 to 100,000. Now that's because all they're counting in the income for the Lido is literally just the money that people are paying for use when they sort of pay-as-you-go use. Their own surveys show that of the leisure centre users and members, so the people who use the whole leisure centre, 66% of those had used the Lido in the last year. Yet if you're a member, as I am, even though, if that may be a big part of the reason why you're a member is to go into the Lido doesn't get a penny of that money, and I've asked why, and I haven't had any answers. I would also just say that the question about the other buildings and renting out to the nursery and et cetera, is also a good question. And just on the point about the cafe, we went over, people from Save Our Lido Stroud went over and talked to Cheltenham, and having a cafe, which people have said over and over and over again, it's the number one thing that people would like there. What do you want when you come out from a swim? You want chips. You want a coffee or something, right? So, Cheltenham make a good amount of money from their cafe. A third of the people who go into Cheltenham Lido don't actually use the Lido. They're just there to kind of watch and hang out, and they spend money in the cafe. So you could make a lot more money. The other thing I just want to say very quickly about how Cheltenham do things differently, and it used to be how it was in Stroud until a few years ago, Cheltenham recognised that you can let in through the gates more people than can safely be in the water, because obviously not everyone is in the water all at once. In fact, maybe 3 times as many they let in. So there's a lot of scope.
I'm glad you raised Cheltenham Lido. Cheltenham Lido actually make a packet from their car park. Not just that, but a huge amount. As we know, we have a very free car park at Stratford Park. Who would be willing to pay for their parking? There's a few people willing. What about people from out of town? Perhaps a tariff for Stroudies and a tariff for people outside. So not many people are keen about that idea of paying for parking. Most of Stroud.
The gym and everything. Why should you pay for park?
Good point.
I just wanted to add really that since we brought it in-house, we've actually only had 1 season. So it's perhaps not entirely surprising that we haven't experimented yet. But I do think a cafe is a great idea. In terms of the costs, I'd just like to say that you're right, Caroline, to challenge the figures. I don't feel happy with the figures. I don't think they are robust enough for the business plan that we will need. And if we get it open this season, and I hope we will need to harvest from that much richer data. It's perhaps also worth noting that as well as not bringing in the costs, none of the overheads are applied to the Lido either. So it does go both ways, but we do need to have figures that really reflect the costs.
But the point about the bathing load is really valuable, and we will be taking that away. And hopefully we can get to the stage where the pool is a place where people want to linger, and therefore we can get many people more in the door and get those revenues up as high as we can.
Okay, following on the theme of finance, this is from Anon. Could the council clarify what principles it uses to distinguish between capital and revenue expenditure when assessing affordability in getting the pool ready in time for the school holidays? I'm not looking for figures, just examples of what types of costs fall into each category in this context.
So I'm a chartered accountant, so I can give you what I would talk about, but this is also broadly what the council talks about. I mean, we're really looking at costs where the asset endures over a year as being capital. Quite often, and I believe this is the case at SDC, there will also be a de minimis, like a low value, where if something is below that value, like a stapler, for example, it's going to last more than a year, but you wouldn't call it capital, you'd call that a revenue expense. So in the context of the pool, the kind of work where we're doing, where we're sprucing up the pool with a lick of paint and that sort of thing, that, broadly speaking, is going to need to be done every year or every couple of years, and I'd expect that to be revenue expenditure. But replacing some of the pool plant, some of the pipe work, that kind of thing, that would be capital. And those two things are treated quite differently in council finances, and that's why you'll see on the handout that we've given, we've got a £200,000 upper limit for what we can spend on revenue, but we've got a greater amount that we can spend on those enduring benefits for the pool that we would call capital.
Does anyone want to come back on that?
Having spent many years running a pool, we used to have maintenance programs, so I'd be quite interested to see what the maintenance programs over the last 10, 15, 20 years were of the Lido.
Is that possible to see that information? Stroud District Council, is it possible to see that information?
I'm sorry, I missed a little bit, but I think you're asking for to see what maintenance has been carried out. Yeah, we'd be happy to look at the maintenance programs and provide that.
Okay.
As far as it's available, certainly.
Okay, continuing on the theme of finance. This is from Anon. At Stroud District Council's Community Services and Licensing Committee on Thursday the 19th of March, the recommendation was made to reallocate the existing £900,000 budget in the capital programme for Lido maintenance works to create a capital grant fund. Please, can Stroud District Council confirm if this money would be available to any community group taking on the management of the Lido? So first of all, let's talk about this £900,000. So where's it come from?
We don't have it, it will be borrowed. So it was a commitment originally to borrow up to 900,000, and of course there are costs to borrowing. And that commitment we've shifted a bit as the possible future of the Lido has shifted. So it's, as agreed, the first shift made at Community Services and Licensing, jump in if I get this wrong, Chloe or Keith, was to offer it as a kind of match funding when we were looking at capital expenditure well in excess of that, and I know the figure of 5 million has been much disputed, but let's say a few million, and this probably is still what the Lido needs over the longer term, not just for this summer, obviously. So we changed the terms of that so it would be available as a kind of match funding, what we could put in if fundraising by, we hope, a community organisation of some sort could raise more of the money needed for that capital work. We've now, at the Strategy and Resources Committee last week, we have now said that we would borrow, still borrowing, of course, not money we have, towards capital work that is judged necessary for the longer than one summer future. But some of that, what's needed to to safely open the pool this summer may be a combination of what would count as revenue budget, expenditure, maintenance work, and capital. So the up to 200,000 for maintenance work and the up money that we would, by the way, would have to come from cutting somewhere else in the budget. So we've committed to spending up to 200,000 if it takes that to safely open the Lido this summer. But we would have to find cuts somewhere else because our budgets are squeezed by largely by reductions in central government funding. So it might be that the work needed to open the Lido safely this summer is a combination of maintenance work and capital work. And if that's the case, then some of the 200,000, or up to 200,000, would be joined with some of the 900,000 borrowed money that counts as capital. That get it about right?
Caroline, I'm going to come to you. You mentioned earlier that the campaign group commissioned an independent civil engineer to carry out their own assessment of the Lido and what needs doing. Is £900,000 going to cover?
It is absolutely ample. Just to be clear, more than enough. Just to be clear, we haven't paid anybody. We're all doing this pro bono. This is the engineer is someone who himself swims in the Lido with his family, but he is a chartered civil engineer. He's costed the programme of works that's needed to get it up to scratch and fit for the summer and beyond. You know, this is stuff like relaying some slabs around the Lido, you know, maybe some handrails here, yes, some shot blasting to the base of the pool. It's all fairly small scale stuff. And that's absolutely could be done, needs to be done. I'm not an accountant. I'm not sure how much I've completely followed that answer, if I'm honest. I think that, you know, there is obviously a question about if you don't do maintenance, which is revenue spend, at what point does that then become capital? Because it's been, you know, it's got a bit beyond that. These problems are for the council to figure out with their accountants in whatever way they need to. I think for me the key thing is that this needs to be explained clearly, what they're going to do and when, and it needs to be done really transparently, because I think they're saying that this is happening, but I'd like to hear more clarity on that as the evening progresses.
Does anybody... Chloe, go back to you.
So what I would like to say is it's been incredibly useful to have the input from the engineer that Caroline mentions, and I think he's here tonight somewhere, so thank you, Julian. And the piece that he's doing about looking at what do we need just to get it open for this season, plus one eye on future seasons as well, is very useful. That's not the exercise that arrived at the 900 grand in the first place. I think we're all hoping that we can get to something like the kind of figure that SOS have come up with, 120,000. The figure of 200,000 is anticipating that there may be some extra bits and bobs in there that as a council, and therefore a naturally risk-averse organisation, we might want to pay for. But yeah, there's that piece. There's a slightly longer term piece. So you will have seen in the handout that we have a condition survey that's going to be a bit more invasive. It's going to go underground, look in the pipes, really get stuck into the plant and see what the state of that is. We are anticipating that some medium-term work will likely come out of that. Hopefully there won't be any deal breakers that prevent the pool opening this season, but there may well be some money that needs to be spent that will eat into that 900,000 because we don't just want it open this season, we want it open from every season from this point on. But yeah, I think what we've asked, as of Thursday night, we asked officers to give us a costed plan and a timetable for what needs doing, both in the short term, getting it open this season, hopefully in time for the school holidays, the medium term, what's it going to take to keep it open, and then all of us starting to think about that longer term picture, who should own and run the Lido, and what does that kind of putting it on a sustainable footing forever look like? in the way that Alan has done at Wootton. And I had some involvement in the past in Wootton when I used to live there, and it's just been amazing to see how Alan and his team, every single year, that pool has just got better and better in community hands. And that's a vision.
Alan's blushing.
But not rushing to do everything fancy all at once, which is perhaps where we got ourselves in a bit of a muddle in the council. What we should be doing, to aspire to do, is what Wootton have done each year, just make something better every single time, and that's what they've really done successfully.
Alan, do you want to say anything?
You're very kind.
Chloe, I'm glad that you mentioned ownership, because that is our next theme now. And this question comes from Emily Lake. Looking at the long-term future of the Lido, it is apparent that Stroud District Council wish to work with the community to secure the Lido's future through transfer of ownership or management to a dedicated trust or the like. With this in mind, what specific skill sets does Stroud District Council believe are needed from the community to make this a reality? First of all, is it apparent that Stroud District Council wish to work with the community to secure the Lido's long-term future?
I think when we look around the country at pretty much every single Lido I can think of, they are in some shape or form in community hands. And it'll be really interesting, hopefully, to hear from Tim in a minute, who's a specialist in this, because of his, fantastic experience. But I think as we go into the Unitary Council in 2 years' time, so in 2 years' time, for those who aren't aware, Stroud District Council will cease to exist. And instead, we will either have one or two sort of mega councils within Gloucestershire. And those councils will operate adult social care, children's social care, and highways, which are really big demand-led services that eat up a lot of money. Special assets like the Lido are going to be vulnerable in that situation. So I think my feeling is that the Lido in its long-term future would be much safer in community hands. In terms of skills, I'd probably hand over to Alan on that, but I gather a nuclear engineer is a vital part of it.
Actually, Tim, would you like to pick up there?
Yeah, I thought this question might come up. Before community skills, and there are skills that are going to be required to operate at the moment. Those same skills are going to be required by somebody, whether they're employed by a local authority or volunteer for the community or whoever. So in terms of the tasks that need to be done, we could probably pretty quickly pull together a list of all the activities that take place. Can lean on the likes of Wootton. But I just wanted to, first of all, say I don't think it's automatically binary between either the district owning and running and the community. And I just wanted to suggest that there may be more than this, but I thought of 4 different ways that this might move forward. There is the status quo, council-led, and in that situation, then the requirements of the community would be broadly the same as they are at the moment, with the friends of, with others involved. You might tighten up on some of that now that the assets back in local authority ownership rather than a leisure operator. It could be leased to an operator, and that's a situation that you're just coming out of, but that is still theoretically an option. So if it's going to continue, theoretically that is something that could happen. There is community asset transfer. Community asset transfer is part of the Localism Act in 2011, the detail of which it's probably not for tonight, but essentially what that means is there is a mechanism for a local community to take on and run the asset, what Alan's and team are doing in Wootton. And then there's a hybrid or partnership model that might be a combination of one or other council that are here, the town council and a friends group and an operator or not an operator. all the tasks that need to be carried out over and above some slightly different governance are going to be the same. So the answer about what skills the community would need, it's in order to be able to take responsibility for governance, ownership, all of the health and safety, running it as an operator, if that's the route that you collectively decide to go through over the next year or two. And if not, maybe the community takes responsibility for some parts of that, one or other council takes responsibility for other parts of that, and so on and so on. So I think this really is a question about what sort of model people want moving forward. I'd suggest that that's probably done over a period of time rather than just a vote tonight. But the weight of interest in this meeting tonight would suggest that the community is interested in being more involved than you are at the moment. But that does come with responsibilities, and it does come with the stresses, and it does mean that Alan thinks about this 25 hours a day, and so there is that list that we could come up with of all the things that you need to be able to run a pool, and there's a few people on the panel who could probably provide that pretty quickly. It just depends where the dividing line is between who does which bit.
Yeah.
So, in order to look at those possibilities and plan for the future of the Lido beyond this summer, we're setting up a working group which will have its first meeting next week, which will have on it councillors and officers from the District Council, councillors and officers from the Town Council, friends of the Lido, including the engineer Julian, who's been referred to earlier, Save Our Lido Stroud, and representatives from the MP's office. The MP held a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and that group will look at all these possibilities, will take advice from everywhere it can, which would likely include locality, and the two groups who advised at the MP's meeting, Future Lidos, and can someone remember the name of the other one? And Swim England, yeah, and we had some very helpful advice at that meeting, so we'll be following that up. So that's where we are, how we are starting to look at the future of the Lido, questions of who will own it, who will manage it, and all of the above that's been mentioned and more.
Thank you, Martin. This was actually a pre-submitted question as well. Would Stroud Town Council take on the Lido from the District Council?
How did I know this one was coming up? So there's definitely a role for the Town Council to play. I can't commit to anything here. We've got our own structures that we need to go through as a council. But there is a history of the Town Council taking on assets from the District Council. So you'll remember what the sub-rooms was like many years ago, and now what it's thriving now. So there is that history there of us being really good custodians of community assets. Town Council is very open to discussing these. First of all, it needs to be for the community, and then we'll have a conversation with the District Council. But for us as a Town Council, the community needs to tell us whether they want us to take that asset on first.
Okay. Okay, sorry, Karen.
I just wanted to come in there as well. I think that one of the skills that everyone here has shown is like an ability to scrutinise and to hold to account. And there's a question about, what skills are wanted from us, but it's also about what the community wants. And I think what we've been saying is we want, the initial announcement was to kind of hand over to the community an asset that was closing, that was being mothballed. And we've said, we don't want that. Let's talk about handing this over once it's, functioning as a going concern. You've done the basic repairs this summer. So, the working group was mentioned. So thank you, firstly, everyone for being here who's pushed that, I think. I've been invited to sit on the working group. I've accepted. But I'm just quite anxious that although there are excellent, amazing people in this room, the people from the locality, the people from Wootton, I know Chloe herself, lots of people who've got really good experience and skills in these kind of transfers. And yes, I personally would like to see the Town Council taking a strong role. But I think, we need to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball. It's good that the council has passed this amendment. We welcome that, to say that they are going to try and keep it open after all. But, then the risk, and the reason we didn't respond too favourably initially, or we were a little bit cautious in our response, is because there was a risk that it was too slow, you know. We have seen, today there has been stuff going on, right? There's been people walking around on site, and we are encouraged by that, I would say, you know, that stuff is going on. The engagement has been positive, but there is a lot of complexity and there is a lot of unknowns. We're hearing that tonight, you know. A couple of years ago, we got reports about what needed to be done, and it didn't happen. So really, we need to make sure that the boots are on the ground, as it were, by the end of May. And I would ask the council tonight to commit to publishing a timescale, putting clear milestones against that to make sure that we can have that. In private conversations, I think we were told maybe 3 to 4 weeks would be the timescale to get a costed schedule and get stuff happening. That's just about enough time, and I would ask the council to publicly commit to that timescale tonight if they can.
Caroline, just very briefly, a yes or no answer. Would Save Our Lido Stroud commit to helping manage the Lido?
We commit to helping in whatever way we can. But I think that, you know, we need to make sure this is done properly. We've had a month to organise. We're a very new organisation. Sorry, that wasn't quite a yes.
That's good enough for me. Is Liz Baldwin in the audience, please? I was getting excited then because Liz was the only person who was willing to ask her own question of pre-submitted question. So I'm going to read it on her behalf again. There is a huge pressure from a very vocal group to open this year, but less discussion about what is needed to secure the long-term future of the Lido. It's obvious from other Lidos that a community charity organisation is the only way to have a secure future. Are the people who are putting so much time and energy into the Save Our Lido campaign willing to take on that challenge? And I've sort of just asked that question, haven't I? So it's a shame Liz isn't here, but... Okay, on with the next question. And just to say, we're going to wrap up in about just over 5 minutes and then hand over to you, over to the floor. So all you need to do is raise your hand and wait until a microphone is with you so we can all hear your question. So this is from Anon. On the 19th of March, Stroud District Council said that it planned to assist the community in fundraising. What does it look like? And which attributes are driving the level of assistance Stroud District Council may offer one group over another? Who would like to answer that question?
I think my answer to that is my previous answer. That's what the working group will be trying to establish. And I think the working group is having a preliminary meeting which will be discussing its terms of reference, its remit, its membership. So if there are other organisations or groups out there who think they would be in a position to help or do that kind of work, I think we'd be very pleased to hear from them.
Worth saying that Friends of the Lido has existed for some years now, and we've obviously been having conversations with them. It feels like they'd be the natural port of call, but you know, the energy coming from the community has been amazing, and we've had I think it's around 170, 180 emails with expressions of different types of support. So I think what we're hoping we can get to is a place where we can support either the Friends or another group in capacity building, because it takes a lot of bodies to make this happen. You know, it took a lot in Wootton, it would take even more with a 50-metre pool. So yeah, I think we just want to make sure that we're making use of all the expertise and the energy out there to make this happen.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that, yeah, we've also had phenomenal response from the community. I think we've had nearly 500 responses to our survey that we put out. And also an awful lot of people have talked to us about wanting to help, wanting to get involved. You know, we've seen the response from the local business community, the shops, all of that. So many people have come and talked to us. So we absolutely, you know, really important to be part of that conversation.
Just going to add this really quickly. Has the idea of investment from local entrepreneurs been considered at all?
Not offered.
His name keeps coming up, doesn't it? Dale Vince, if you missed that. Yeah.
Very much open to it.
I mean, there was a whisper about 10 years ago that Dale offered to buy the Lido. Is that true?
It's not true that I'm aware of. I think that's an urban myth. But more seriously, if there are, entrepreneurs, investors, philanthropists who wanted to get involved in any shape or form, tasteful sponsorship of the fountain or whatever it is, we'd consider all sorts. If it means that we can deliver things that the council couldn't otherwise, then in consultation with the community, we would absolutely consider that.
I just wanted to come back again to the fact that there is nearly £1 million in the budget. We've been talking about how we can spend maybe 100, a couple of hundred to get it fit for the summer. Clearly that's not the end of the story, but there's still more money there attached, and I'd really like to hear a bit more from council about, just committing to a timescale. I still haven't heard it from them formally tonight. Are they going to get this costed schedule of works in 3 or 4 weeks in time to get the boots on the ground in May, as well as hearing a bit more about what will happen to the money they've already allocated beyond? But there's 2 questions there. I would like to hear both.
Okay, Martin, can we tie you down to some sort of deadline?
No, Pastor Keith, I'll comment on the money bit. 200,000, as we said, we'd commit to spend, but we will have to make cuts elsewhere to do so. That is our commitment. The 900,000, I assume the nearly million is what Caroline's referring to there. As we said before, it's not money we have, it's a commitment to borrow. And therefore we would incur the cost of borrowing and pass that cost on to a successor council.
Yeah, this is going to sound like a bit of a weasel answer, but I'll try and be as clear as I can. When we said 3 or 4 weeks, that is specifically what the engineer said, who came to visit the site today. He said this is going to take quite a lot of work to do a proper cost assessment. At that meeting, it's becoming quite well known here, Julian was there from Save Our Lido Stroud, myself, the leisure services manager from the district council, and the 4 of us talked about how quickly we could get the costed plan. And the timetable that we were given was 3 to 4 weeks, and I'm very confident that the company and the engineer that was on site will try his very best to bring something to us within that timetable. Because I think the engineer works for a large multi-million-pound engineering company that works across the southwest and the south of England. But he lives in Stroud. He's just off Parliament Street, actually. So he's a local person, knows the Lido, very experienced and skilled, represents a big company, but knows Stroud, and he will try his very best, working in collaboration with Save Our Lido Stroud, to bring forward a costed plan. If we can do that in 3 to 4 weeks, there is a commitment to move and mobilise on site as quickly as possible. But it depends on the scale of the work and the cost that coming back. But there is a real genuine commitment for us to do that. It's not for me, and it's outside of my control really to say. I can say definitely it's going to be 3 weeks, or it's definitely going to be 4 weeks, because it does depend on the company which we're commissioning to do that work. What I would say is, and this is important, that we committed, and this came up in the meeting, the council meeting we talked about this Thursday, to provide fortnightly updates that are on the website and made available to the public that detail the progress and the work that we're doing every 2 weeks, so that we are being clear and transparent about the steps we're taking, because we realise this is something that we need to do together. So that is something that we will commit to, keep everybody closely informed about what we're doing.
Thank you, Keith. Tim, did you want to say something before we wrap up on this question?
Actually, the conversation's moved on. I'll make a point now, because the original question was around support with fundraising. And I was just going to frame this, having spent 10 years, not as a sport funder, but working for the National Lottery Community Fund. A lot of the things that I've heard and seen tonight, including the political commitment from one other, both councils, including the willingness to borrow, which would be a sizable amount of money as match funding, most definitely in starting with community desire and interest, are the types of points of decision that, as I've spent years and years and years looking at funding applications and with others, deciding which ones you fund and support and which ones you don't. So the whole process that we're going through at the moment are the types of things that make the fundraising process much more likely to be successful. It doesn't mean at the moment that there are huge ready pots of cash available that are just sitting there waiting for us to collectively walk in someone's door and say, can we have $1 million? Can we have a couple of million? It's not a particularly helpful funding environment. So splitting what I've been hearing as well, and I've been learning tonight, what I've been hearing about doing necessary works, 100, 150 to a couple of 100,000, to make sure that this season has the best possible chance of being able to open and being successful is pragmatic. There's then a medium-term plan required for the the larger pieces of work that means that you'll have an asset that you want to celebrate in years to come. And what I've heard is a commitment pretty much around the whole room to get involved in our own image in terms of that process. And as someone who would, like I say, is used to read all of these applications day after day after day and make decisions and grant manage, this is the type of process that would really then serve well looking at that medium-term, longer-term future.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you. So that concludes our round of pre-submitted questions. Thank you very much for your patience. Let's hand over to you now, the floor. If you'd like to ask our panel a question that hasn't already been asked, or more importantly, you feel perhaps hasn't been answered properly, please raise your hand and wait until a member of staff comes to you with a microphone. So we've got a few questions here. Okay. Man at the back. Tom.
Thank you. Tom Berry. I'd just like to make a plea for public ownership. I feel ever since this story is broken that there's been a sort of narrative coming from the district council of this needs fundraising from the community. They call me old-fashioned, but I pay my council tax, and in return for paying my council tax, I like to see services provided by my local council. The local community, we already had to build the sub-rooms, we've had to buy the heavens. It's exhausting. You know, why should we have to do this? We have a local council. Please provide the services we want and let us swim in our pool. Thank you.
I hear what you're saying, and as a taxpayer, I completely agree. But in real terms, local government's finances have been decimated in the past few years. And our funding settlement, which we received this February, was £2 million less than we thought it was going to be. And in the context of a small district council with a revenue budget of around £22 million, a £2 million drop, you know, just out of nowhere is extraordinary. And we are funding our statutory services with reserves now. That's where we're at. So discretionary spend, like the Lido, is really tricky. You know, that's where we're at. We are down to the bare bones of finances. So yes, I fully agree. We should be able to have nice things. We should have the funding from government to do that. But it's not here, so we have to make these tough decisions. And that's why we're looking at different funding models, as pretty much every other Lido operator around the country has had to do, unfortunately, but that's where we're at.
Anybody else? Okay, can we have our next question, please? Thank you. Oh, we've got two at the same time. Okay.
I don't know. Oh, hello, everyone. I'm encouraged by some of what I've heard tonight, and I've come here. I live 20 minutes walk away, but I've been told that I can't vote, and I've been told that I don't live in Stroud. So I think because of a quirk of how the boundary lines are set up to do with the Stroud parish, there are many, many residents of Stroud who will not have an actual vote tonight. I live in Butterow, which is in Robborough. If I lived in Brimscombe or Thrupp or Cairnscross or Ebley or Cashes, I wouldn't be able to vote tonight. So I'm really encouraged to hear that we've got this forum and this democratic vehicle to use. I'm really encouraged that there could be a referendum. But as a Stroud resident, how do I have a vote on my Lido that I really care about just because of how the parishes and wards are worked out?
Have the mic.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it also opens up the fact that it is so much more than just a Stroud thing. And that is important. I watched the streams of the meetings that have been had, people writing in from Berkeley, from Wootton and so on that use the pool. It is a difficult thing because this has been organised by essentially your parish council, and the borders of some of those are unusual. I know my patch in Uplands stretches over to parts over by Pagan Hill. I guess what's important to note is that your voice is heard regardless of whether you can have a vote or not. A vote that we carry out today is not binding, but it is indicative. In any event, and I will come to it in a little bit, as a town council, we are at our next meeting, which you're welcome to come to a week today. We will talk about some of the outcomes from here. What this also is, though, is a clear message from everyone who feels that they have something to say, such as yourself, to representatives from the district council today. So I wish everybody had one of these red cards. Honestly, I do. Although I would rather they were green, but hey ho. Not party political, just because it's more positive. Let's get that out there. I'm independent, right? But in reality, it's only because it is a legal and procedural thing. That's the unfortunate part of it. But the meeting is open to everyone. You're having your say. Everyone that's here, regardless of where they live, does. That actually carries a bit more weight in most cases than being able to have one of these. But your own parish council can call a meeting just like this one if you want them to, and they can have their panel and they can take it through. It may not be practical for all of them, but that is something that can be done.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for explaining that.
Well, that actually comes on to another point of how that would be, because in Wootton, your area is much larger as a parish. Here, it would carry almost nothing, because what we need is a referendum that is carried out here, a referendum that's carried out in Keynes Cross, in Pagan Hill, and so on. So, however, I mean, referendums are still possible. If the district council, for example, wanted to ask if you wanted to increase your council tax, an opportunity that was open to them as councillors to vote for would to have a referendum for that. And there are examples where that's happened.
Should we do a quick show of hands? Who would like a referendum?
By all means, that window of opportunity is officially passed, but...
Who would like a referendum? Let's just do a quick show of hands. Quite a lot.
That would be a district council thing as opposed to just us, because otherwise you wouldn't get your say, and I don't want that.
Caroline, I know you want to say... Sorry,
Can I just
go
go
for it.
from a legal point of view? We can't call a referendum for the district council at this meeting.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
we can only call a town council referendum at this meeting.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say really quickly, because I think that, we've seen like massive democratic engagement, right? Probably people have emailed their district councillors that have never emailed their district councillors before. And, just to reiterate, it is encouraging. I am encouraged by what I hear, but I'm also very aware of tight timescales. And I think, we do need to keep in touch with our district councillors. We need to make sure that they know that we are aware that we don't want to see any slippage, and we will notice if that happens. I know that's not the intention, but we need to help them by scrutinising them, I think.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I really, really welcome that. I mean, the meeting on Thursday, I won't say it's the most fun 5 hours or however long it was, but the fact there were so many people in the room and engaging with democracy, many of whom, haven't necessarily done that before because perhaps they haven't been moved to do so, was brilliant. And it's brilliant you're all here tonight. My slight concern with the referendum of the district council is that I think it's around 120,000 people who live in Stroud district. A lot of them don't necessarily live within easy reach. And I know the Lido has much greater reach than just Stroud, but we might get a result that doesn't really reflect the importance of it to people who live in Stroud. So we need somehow to find a mechanism that goes beyond Stroud town, but not so far that we get people in Dursley who are perhaps looking in other directions
So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but we definitely need to find some measure to evidence the massive strength of support that goes outside Stroud Town's boundaries.
Just to add as well, because I know the stuff about town and district is really confusing for people. The district, so the district is the one, the district council is the one who makes the decisions. They do have their meeting of full council at which all councillors have a vote on the 30th of April. I think what we're hearing tonight is, that we should be encouraged, but we will have a better idea over the next couple of weeks if things are on track or if they're going on track, and if we need to go along to that meeting, ask questions and bring them back on track on the 30th of April.
Okay. Back to the questions. Lady at the back. We've got loads of questions.
So my question was about finances, but we've moved on. I would say, as somebody who's lived in the Stroud district their entire life, who went to a Stroud school, whose family business was in Stroud, and yet I happen to live 1.5 miles outside of Stroud and therefore have no say, I find that staggering. The Lido is part of all of our lives, not just the people who happen to live in the town. And you have to recognise that somehow.
There's a bit of confusion. If I could just clarify, so the Lido is currently owned by Stroud District Council. So what the vote tonight is purely about demonstrating interest and support, but any actual vote on the future of the Lido would be in the hands of the District Council, which would include yourself, because that's the whole of Stroud District.
But would it not have been more inclusive to have had a different structure to the voting this evening?
Yeah, because we're not a parish council, we don't have the same mechanisms. So
yeah, but you could have run 2 votes. One for the people with the red card and one for the people with the green card who don't live in town.
Yeah, possible, yeah. I'd have to hand over to Stroud Town on that because it's their meeting.
That would have been a good idea. However, that wouldn't have then been been discussed at our full council meeting, because from a town council point of view, we need to be able to recognise our voters within our parish. We've got to remember this is a town council public meeting.
So, I guess, at least indicatively, there's no problem with us asking for a show of hands after we've counted the red stuff. And we have, this isn't hiding behind legalese, we have to operate this way. If it wasn't the case, I wouldn't be sat here telling you. But I don't see that there's any harm in us asking for a show of hands once we've done the count of the red cards, because at least that then gives us, well, it tells our colleagues at the district council a bigger picture, but it still means that what we have to react to legally with our ward members is something that we have to arm us. That's probably the best compromise I can offer, but I think the overall impact of it will not be changed, I believe.
Thank you, Tony. That sounds like a great offer. Yeah, do you want to do it now or later?
We will do it when we come to the motions and bits and pieces.
Brilliant. Okay. That's a...
Counters happy with that?
That's a really good reason to stick around, isn't it? Okay, more questions, please, from the... So we've got 2 here. Okay.
Yeah, just a quick question, first of all. I think the figures that have been given around have been quite different. I mean, this 5 million that we've all been referring to seems to have reduced somewhat. I'm a bit baffled by that. But I would like to say that the majority of the people, and I use the Lido about 4 times a week, every week, while the time it's open, the whole time it's open. I'm there as much as I can. We don't really want something that's super fancy, you know? We just want something that's safe, that's really important, that's clean, that's well sort of staffed, you know, as far as lifeguards are concerned. But we don't want anything really fancy, so why the 5 million? Where did that come from?
Do you want to respond?
The 5 million proposal was one of 4. The smallest one was for 0, for not doing anything, and the other 2 were for about 8 million, about 10 million, which were different proposals for the long-term work on the Lido. The 5 million, 5.1 million actually, was something called a REBA Stage 0. So it's a high level, not a quotation for work, not a final decision about what will be done. And it wasn't really to make it a fancy place at all. Those were the 8 and 10 million pound proposals. They were fancy. It was what was by as it was found in that report, what was necessary to make it safe and sustainable for the longer term future. What we've been talking about this evening, the 200,000 or whatever it may be, is just for immediate work, band-aid work that would keep it open this summer. That might not be enough for next summer, never mind for the longer term future. That's undecided yet. So the 5 million probably was not what the work included in that report would actually have cost by the time we got to the further stages of reports and towards actually doing work. But I think it remains the case that to make the Lido fit and safe for a longer term future, for several years at least, it's going to take quite a lot more than the possibly 120 or 200,000 we're looking at the moment. It may still be in the millions.
Thank you, Martin. Caroline, we've heard lots of figures tonight. So what do you think about what you've heard, and how can you answer that question from the audience?
I think, speaking to the lady who asked the question, I would go back to Cheltenham. Suddenly scared that was mine. You know, some of the solutions that were put into that 5 million figure were, you know, vastly different and fancier than what Cheltenham has had. And, you know, as various people have said to me, you know, we're not Cheltenham, we're Stroud, like we want it nice, but you swim in that spring-fed gem, looking around at the hills, and yes, it needs a little bit of love to bring it back. I don't think anyone who's used it, you know, they need to fix the ladders, they need to, you know, make sure that there's stuff done, right? There is some basic stuff like that needs doing. But, and completely, we're not saying that this is it and then you stop. In fact, going forward, you know, we've heard some commitments today a little bit. I think we could call them commitments about the short term, let's see. And we've got a mechanism, like I say, 30th of this month is when the full council meets. So if things are going off track, we might kind of have some idea by then. We'll let you know, make sure you're following us. But I just would like to hear actually a little bit more about the longer term and the finances. So, you know, for example, the Lido is next to a leisure centre. I mean, I hesitate to open up this can of worms in a way, but I also, you know, I use the leisure centre as well. What is going to happen? Would the money be shared between whoever's owning the leisure centre and the Lido? Because we've heard tonight that it's not properly shared out. Is there potential for other community assets to go over to the town council? You know, there's other questions that it would be good to hear about, I think.
So that's quite a lot to unpack, all of one answer. I mean, in response to the lady who asked the question, we very much heard that what Stroud wants is not something super fancy. We've learnt a lot from conversations about what they have at Cheltenham, about what they have at Portishead, and it's been really interesting talking to Tim before the meeting tonight about the work that's happened there, and I think Martin and I will probably pop down for a visit. So we understand that it's about incremental improvement, and it's about making the place somewhere where people want to dwell a bit longer, and it's about safety fundamentally as well, but it's not about a fancy solution that goes way above what Stroud are looking for. So that piece is really well heard and understood, and is reflected in the changes that have been made since the Community Services and Licensing Committee and where we are today. In terms of the sort of future financing, I mean, I think all is to play for to a certain extent. So I think that the model that we end up with, and Tim talked about that continuum between, you know, a wholly owned local authority solution towards something that's sort of almost wholly owned by the community, and lots of different options in between. I think that would, to an extent, define what happens on the wider site and where the income goes and that sort of thing. And that is something I would expect to be discussed in the working group in the coming weeks and months, starting to do that, starting to build that business case, and starting to plan together for that longer term future.
2 quick points on that. Portishead Lido, I was talking to someone who is in a similar position to Alan at Portishead Lido about the money they were spending. They spent over £1 million. Let's call it £1 million for today rather than exact numbers. But they were saying about £850,000 of that the general public would never see. So I think everyone here on the panel has heard that you don't want something which is brand new, ultra shiny, but just to do some of the basic work on a Lido that was already open was over £1 million, and £850,000 of that was not seen by anybody, and if you went down there you wouldn't really see. So what we're talking about here, for an 89, 90-year-old Lido, where there are some significant below the bonnet things that need to take place, they are going to have a heavy price tag, or potentially have a heavy price tag. Different conversation to what happens this year, but medium term, it may still end up a big 7-figure sum, however, whatever colour paint you want at the end, because that's just a little bit at the end. The other thing I would say on that continuum of local authority ownership all the way through to community ownership, also be careful what you wish for. As a community, if you want to take this on, do you want to take it on with a huge amount of liability, or do you want to take it on in a position where a lot of that work has already been done through collective endeavour here? But the responsibility, if you take on 100% ownership and you haven't done all of that work, you take on 100% liability. So there's a balance to be struck here, and it's difficult in a time where there isn't a huge amount of money going around just generally, but there will be a line that you find where there'll be compromises on each part, I would have thought, but don't just say, oh well, we don't really need that much doing. Maybe you do need some things doing to provide yourselves with the collective reassurance that this is actually an asset that you're taking on.
Thank you, Tim. Got time for just a couple more questions. Lady middle row here has had her hand up. Can we have the microphone here, please? She's had her hand up. Caroline.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to ask
sorry.
the question because I got the microphone, sorry. just a small point. It's great that there's been so much agreement that this is a really important asset for the community, but what's not been talked about much is the fact this is a 50-metre pool. I think it's been mentioned once in the negative, but this is a really rare asset. To my knowledge, there are no indoor 50-metre pools in the whole of Gloucestershire, and there are 2 outdoor pools here in Cheltenham. So I just sort of want the panel to respond on how they acknowledge that, and maybe to get some kind of commitment that this will remain open and remain a 50-metre pool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just say, there was one of the 4 proposals we looked at which which halved the length of the pool. That was one that we didn't seriously consider, among other reasons, because of the cost of it. But no, I think everyone here understands that it's a very rare thing we have, and we want to protect it. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Just to cement my reputation as kind of Lido nerd, I was going to sort of outdoor pool nerd. Apparently it's just under 50 metres. So, you know, if at some point when we secure the future, maybe we can dig that extra metre, that would be nice.
You don't want much, Caroline. You don't want much. Caroline, you've had your hand up some time. Okay, a question over there, and then we'll go back over here.
Hello.
Hello.
I know there's been mention about there's going to have to be some money found. I don't think it might be about 200,000, something's going to have to come out of a budget to help pay for some of this. I'm a member of the Communities and Licensing Committee. I have a real sadness, actually, that, you know, this money that is going to be siphoned off into the Lido is actually going to have an effect on people in Stroud. So I think it's really important that we all have to kind of bear in mind that money isn't infinite at the moment. We're living in a really difficult political situation where budgets are massively squeezed. And it's great that we want to, you know, save the Lido, but within our community, within our district, there is going to be money that's going to be taken away from the community to help pay for some of this work. And I think there has to be a recognition of that there are going to be things that aren't going to happen. There are going to be other groups in the district that aren't going to get certain things because that money's been siphoned away. And I just think it's really important to have a slight degree of humbleness, that there are lots of people in our district that really suffer from deprivation, that have, you know, no food, that have mouldy homes. And actually, you know, this money is going to the Lido, and that's great. But there are going to be sacrifices made as a result of it. And I think people need to recognise that.
That's a really good point. Thank you. Caroline, how would you respond to that, diverting money away from essential, what is, you know, known as essential stuff?
I really hear that point. There's a lot of very hard up people in Stroud. I think what I would say is that I've spoken to a lot of not very well off people in Stroud who use that outdoor pool, Lido, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I myself, you know, I'm not that poor, but I haven't had a garden for the last 15 years that I've lived in Stroud. And for me, actually going somewhere where there's like, you know, somewhere that you can just lie outside and sunbathe, right? And just cool off and dip. And I think, I read somewhere, you know, the value of sort of leisure activity in terms of money saved to the NHS is something like £2,500 per person per year, right? And like, so the level of social value that I think that provides, you know, people have told me stories about how they don't get, you know, they didn't get away on holiday, they'll take 2 weeks off and just go to the Lido every day. And that's getting to the case for all of us. Like, I hear the point, we need to do more, definitely, for the most deprived people, but there's also a lot of people who are just about getting by. I hope I don't sound like Theresa May there, actually. And, you know, who I think do get a lot of value. It's not posh people. The thing I love about this pool is it's just ordinary people. You know, it really is.
Tony.
And you do raise a good point. And I found it interesting a few minutes ago that we were talking about repairs and said, it's not about the money at the moment, which is odd because when people come in to talk to me on a pretty much daily basis about it, the money is what they are talking about. And running the town council, it's what we most often talk about. However, it might not be quite the binary choice that you're led to believe, even within your committee, because your council has reserves, and £200,000 in the grand scheme of things is not going to break anyone's back. No, it's not been put in the budget for this year. That absolutely is a question you need to ask within the district councillors how that is. An elephant in the room is that the plans were to do nothing and it stays closed, or things that would look to its future. We all understand, I think, that we need to look at things for its future, but the thing that was missing from the plan was, and what will keep it open today and enable it to become more viable going forward as well. So I'd like to think that actually saying that taking £200,000 away from something else is possibly not as accurate as it needs to be. As a district councillor, then you can help put pressure to make sure that that relatively small amount of money in comparison to your reserves, which I think the last I heard did run into the millions, and you have to have an amount that is kept to one side as well to operate. We all do at different tiers. It is just possible that you could dip into those reserves. And when you look at how much money hasn't been invested over a period of time, when the district council was responsible for the repairs, whether they were told about them or not, it might just help balance that just a little bit. Luckily, not my budget.
Chloe, I know you'd like to come back on that.
Sadly, I very definitely am going to have to come back on that. So firstly to say that there is money in this year's budget for the normal operation of the Lido. It's not that that's been stripped out. But more importantly, in terms of our reserves, I don't think you can have seen our most recent medium-term financial statement. our reserves have been absolutely gutted by the Fair Funding Review, and by the time we go into the Unitary Council, our reserves will have been eliminated. So this is very much about money being reallocated from something else, and for that reason, if we choose to spend this money on the Lido, and I think, I think we should, we see the support in front of us, that we need to sweat that money really hard, and we need to make sure that everything that we do is fully justified. Luckily, for the reasons that Caroline explains, getting the Lido back into operation does have a meaningful impact in terms of people's well-being. So I think it is justified. It's very much in line with the council's ambitions around well-being and around, people being able to have affordable, fun activities in their area. But as we go up to local government reorganisation, as we stand, we won't have any money left by the time we get there. So, maybe take a look at our most recent finances.
Did you want to say something?
So just on a slightly lighter note, I think I'd like to mention that whatever is put in by the council, the local authority, if you have the appropriately populated management group, then you can get a lot of leverage. So at Wootton, for example, we have a very advanced software system that we get for free because the person does it for free. We've got access to engineers who does stuff for free, plumbers, electricians, and other crafts. And what I'm trying to say is that the amount that we needed from the council to get that running was relatively small proportion because we knew we had access to these skills. And if you were to pay for those skills within the local authority, that would be a really punitive Labour bill.
Okay, we have time for just one more question. Who has a nice closed question so we get a yes/no answer from the panel, please? Who's got a nice closed question? It's not time to go home yet. Alan, a little bit more.
I have 3 closed questions.
Excellent. Brilliant.
So, Councillor Chloe Turner said that there had been a decline in use in some recent years. Was this linked to COVID lockdown and restrictions? All of these questions are on the subject of you can't manage what you don't measure. Has the council done projected accounts to measure the increased income of extended opening hours and an extended season? And what proportion of the property is being used by the council for storage, and is that income included in the accounts?
Thank you. So I don't know whether, so the decline in the figures, I'm sure COVID fed into that. I fully acknowledge that the figures we have do not reflect normal circumstances over the past few years. They reflect an asset that needs a lot of love, and no doubt they reflect COVID as well. They also reflect differing weather year to year. So what we really need is, some decent average figures that smooth all of that out so we can understand what the base case is. And then, as Tim and Alan have referred to, we need to look for that future position of who are the swimmers we could get in the door by increasing the bathing load, by making the place somewhere that more people want to spend time, by extending the season, extending the opening hours, and so on, so that we've got an aspirational business case that we can put funding bids on in with, and so that we can, look to the future. In terms of projected accounts, that is the exercise that we need to do as part of putting a business case together, and I would anticipate that over time that's something that the working group will start to look towards. In terms of the proportion of the property that's used for storage, I know there's one bit that's used for storing some canoes, but
The only structure that I've seen that has any storage has a load of old chairs in it, which I'm sure no one is paying for the rental of the space for, and in fact they just need disposing of. But I don't think so. And I know there's something called the canoe storage, and I think it's that building I'm talking about. That's one of those corner buildings. Andrew's shaking his head.
When you come into the Lido, turn left, that the council still wants to start with them.
Yeah, that's a load of old chairs and tables. I was in there with Darren recently. Oh, right. I'll have to... Don't... Anyway.
It's like the old changing room, but it has loads of council stuff still.
Well, I hope the council's paying us for it.
Okay, I'm going to give the final word to Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you, Faye. I think the question, I'm not going to come on to all of those questions, but I did want to say something just on this point about the straws. You know, I think the point really is that there's aspects of that site which have potential to be much better used. I think the stuff about the projection of extended hours, what I've heard a few times tonight, and I did want to come back on, is that it was sort of like we need to make it a place where people want to hang out for longer. And actually, since COVID, it's been very difficult to hang out there for long periods of time if you're not a member because of the way that the sessions have been chopped up. People used to go there. I used to go there and say, come, I'll be there all afternoon, come and meet me. And I think people do want to hang out there. They'd like to hang out there even more if we could have some chips. You know, I hope we can make that a reality. And I just want to say as well about the extended hours, we also do need to have a look at the feasibility study, because the feasibility study that was done last October and November said that it wouldn't get any extra usage if you opened it for 20 weeks a year, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, I don't know about you, but 10 hours a day, 7 days a week would be great. It doesn't open till noon most days, even in the height of summer. So I would love that.
Okay, final word to Keith.
Yeah, we're up for all of that. We're up for challenging ourselves, we're up for challenging the use, the revenue we can get, and all the space. We are up for that, and it's great to hear those ideas. So I suppose if I'm having the last word, yeah, we are up for all the ideas that we can take forward, and thank you.
Thank you. We're having to move on now. I'm so sorry. That concludes our questions this evening. I hope you found the debate interesting and informative. I'd just like to thank you all for coming this evening and for your questions. You've been a fantastic audience, Stroud. Thank you. I'd like to thank our panellists. Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you for giving up your evening. Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to St. Laurence Church for being a wonderful host and the use of this wonderful space. Thank you. And to Stroud Town Council and to everyone who has made tonight possible. Thank you. I'd just like to pass now back to Councillor Tony Davey, Mayor of Stroud and Chair of the Town Council. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you to Faye and to our panellists and everyone who's spoken. We're not done yet. Please don't all leave. We've now had the opportunity to discuss the current situation of the Lido, and I think it's been very interesting debate. It's unfortunate that we can't be here all evening to discuss it, but that many discussions about chips, I don't know about you, my stomach is going. So I'm now going to invite any motions or proposals for next steps from the electors of the town on this matter. And again, I apologise, this is the way that it is. I can't do anything about it. It is the legal process to go through, but we will ask for those people who don't have red cards to also show their voting preference when we go through. So please note that the Town Council cannot force the District Council to act, so any motion is about making your views known rather than issuing them with instructions. If there are no motions from the meeting, then I will note that no resolution has been proposed, and there's no issue with that. This meeting alone can influence policy through debate without having to go through a vote. And I think I can be quite sure that everyone on the panel has heard those of you that have been able to speak, both with your questions and your comments afterwards. And I hope that that will inform our next steps going forward. So, can I ask anyone who would like to raise a motion who has not already provided this to our staff to come down to the desk here and provide it for us so that we can get it up on the screen, and then please bring your voting card with you as well. For everyone who doesn't have a motion to bring, can I just ask you to enjoy a 5-minute break whilst we get this together, and then in about 5 minutes time or so I will come back onto the podium. We will look at any of the motions that have been proposed, and I will ask you to express your vote. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. So please have your voting cards to hand, and note that any motion must be proposed and then seconded before it can be considered, and then it will be voted upon. These votes, as I explained, legal stuff, I can't change that, must be made by voters within Stroud Town Council wards of Central, Slade, Trinity, Uplands or Valley wards, but we will also ask for a show of hands of people who don't have red voting slips after the ones that do, so that gives us a more indicative response from the attendees today. The motions will be displayed here on our screen and will be read out by the proposer. We will ask the proposer to raise their card when their name is read out. We will then get a microphone to you so that you can read your own motion. Once you've read that, then I will ask if there are any comments. We can talk about those. Then we will move to those who are in support, those that may be against, and we will do that through each one of them. And hopefully this won't take all night because I'm still thinking about those chips. Okay, so, and this I don't have on my auto cue, so this is where stuff gets really wild for me. So, bear with me. So the first motion is from Megan Shear. Hi, Megan. Can I ask you if you would like to read your proposal, please?
I might have to get a bit closer, actually, because my eyesight's so bad. Is this on? Yeah. In recent years, the outdoor pool hasn't received the attention it deserves, and with looming local government reorganisation, its future is in peril. The Town Council has a track record of looking after local assets. I propose that this meeting calls upon the Town Council to prioritise discussions with the District Council with a view to transferring the freehold for the Lido from Stroud District Council to Stroud Town Council well in advance of local government reorganisation.
Thank you. So now I will ask, are there any comments on the motion? If so, please raise your card and wait for a microphone to come to you. We have a question here.
Sorry, I don't have a question as much as a comment. I hear what you say, and I think it's, you know, a decent idea. It's not possible to do it because in the run-up to local government reorganisation, the district council is not allowed to transfer any revenue generating assets to any other bodies, and that's a national ruling.
Okay, are there any? Caroline.
Chloe also shaking her head. That's actually not quite right. They could do it at this stage. There's no legal impediment to them doing it yet. That legal impediment may come into force fairly soon. We don't know exactly when, but they could do that if they would get their skates on.
Question here.
It could also be considered an asset of nil value because of the liabilities. It's a heap of concrete with a big hole in it. So, so it's got no value.
Big hole is subjective, may I add.
That's
Chloe.
Just to be specific about the legal position, so we will at some point be issued with a Section 24 notice, which will be a decree from the Minister that says that we can't transfer any assets above a certain value without permission from the Minister. We haven't got that yet, and we don't expect to get that till likely spring of next year, based on what's happening with other councils that are ahead of us in the process. What we have had is a letter from the Minister that makes it clear we need to be mindful of future councils, so we can't deliberately do things that would saddle future councils with a problem. I think in this case, although the Lido is an income generating asset, it also comes with liabilities, and I think there would be a decent case to answer that if we're putting the asset in the hands of the right body, and if everybody agrees that that body is Stroud Town Council, most importantly Stroud Town Council, then it would be possible to do it. Whether there's time to deliver it operationally before then is another matter, but we could certainly have a go.
Thank you. We have another question just here.
Thanks very much. Broadly supportive of this. I think Caroline made a point earlier which I'd just like to pick up on, which was about there's loads of unknowns about the revenue that comes in with members of Everyone Active and Active Lifestyles, or whatever it's called, the new thing. I think we need to consider the viability, the profitability of the Lido. If it were owned by a community group or the town council, would probably be subject to the percentage of membership that could come in, and if there's a revenue sharing agreement there or something. I think if it was charged for independent of the rest of the leisure centre, it would be less viable than if it could join the membership up. That feels a bit confusing. If one thing's owned by one organisation, one's owned by the other, there'd need to be a decent revenue sharing agreement between the two there. So as long as that's considered, I think it's broadly a good idea.
Okay, thank you. I can't see any other hands up. I think all those are good points. I haven't picked up any of those being amendments. So on that basis, I'll ask, is there anyone who is seconding this motion? Super, thank you very much. Do I need a name? Yes. Could I take a note of your name for the record, please? Thank you. Okay. Super. So now I will ask for... The motion has been proposed and seconded. I will now put the motion to the vote. Those entitled to vote are electors who live in the Stroud Town. I'm not going to repeat this every time, you will be glad to hear. Parish residents. Each elector has one vote. I will take the vote by a show initially of voting cards. So, all those in favour of the motion, please raise your cards. Right, I've got to make sure that we get all those counted, and I'm not the counter, so bear with me. Make sure you're waving them nice and high. We all good? $27. Thank you. I will come to now a show of hands of those of you who do not have red voting cards who are in favour of the motion, please. Yes, the motion is, in recent years, the outdoor pool hasn't received the attention it deserves, and with looming local government reorganisation, its future is in peril. The town council has a track record of looking after local assets, so the motion is that we call upon the town council to prioritise discussions with the district council with a view of transferring the freehold for the Lido from the district council to the town council well in advance of local government reorganisation. So, can I have a show of hands of those of you who didn't put up red cards, of those who would be in favour of that motion, please? I make that 10. 15. 15, thank you. Now can I have a show of cards for those against this motion, please? 5? 6? 7? I'm just in spotlights here. Honestly, you could have all gone, I'd still be talking. And out of interest, for those who couldn't vote with a red card, those that are against? Not seeing any. And are there any abstentions that you would like to show your red cards for? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do we agree there's 5? 6? 6, thank you. So that motion is carried and is therefore resolved that this town meeting records that you call upon the town council to prioritise discussions with the district council with a view to transferring the freehold for the Lido from the district council to the town council well in advance of local government reorganisation. So what will happen next is we have a meeting a week tonight, and it will be one of the agenda items for us to put this to our town councillors and to discuss it. Thank you for that first motion. So next is a motion from Andy Tate. Is Andy Tate here? Could I ask you to read your motion, please?
Hi, good evening. I propose that this meeting calls on Stroud District Council and Stroud Town Council commit to working together with community and other interested representatives to secure the Stratford Park Lido as an open, accessible and high quality outdoor pool for the benefit of everyone.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments in relation to that motion? I see one hand here.
Can you have some specifics on high quality, please?
As it is your motion, would you like to add your view on high quality?
Full of water.
Okay, so your bar's really low then.
Well painted. Kind of nice line, like liner on the bottom, or kind of like even surface. Chips.
So would have
hot showers.
Would have safe and adequate quality be yeah. Yeah.
I'm probably loud enough without it.
Okay.
But something over the years, it could be, the quality of it could be ratcheted up. I really liked what Alan said about pulling on different people in the community, expertise of crafts like engineers, electricians, plumbers. There's all of those people are out there. So almost you could leverage the community to keep pushing that standard up.
Okay, thank you. Question just here.
I just want to amplify that last point that you made. And one of the things that's puzzled me the whole way through all of this is why suddenly we got landed with long-term plans at the very last minute. The truth is, if we want to build on this asset, first of all, we've got to have an asset. So that's base camp. But I think that just the saving of the asset means that then we have a 5, 10, 15 year, even a 20-year window to use that time to do the kind of work that Alan has done in Wootton. And so I think this big bang choice that we've been landed with, I think, is partly an absence of that sort of strategic attitude going forward. And as a town council councillor myself, I take the endorsement and the token of trust in the last two motions, and I firmly support that approach.
Super, thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions at all? Then, yeah.
I'm just wondering, just in the light of the conversation we just had, I mean, I broadly support this as well. I just wonder if it's worth a small amendment to put in what you said subsequently about it developing over time, you know, good sort of good quality developing over time or something like that. Would that be, yeah, would that?
Okay, thank you. Bear with us a second. This is live here, as you can see. There's no pressure. How's spell check today? Because mine's rubbish. Okay, so the amended proposal is: this meeting calls on the District Council and Town Council to commit to working together with community and other interested representatives to secure the Stratford Park Lido or open air pool, I don't want a discussion on that tonight, please, as an open, accessible and safe, higher quality, developing over time outdoor pool for the benefit of everyone. Can I take a show of red cards for those who are voting in... Oh, actually, no, sorry, my mistake. I've got to have a seconder. A seconder. Super, can I take your name, please? Thank you. I'm getting ahead of myself. Super, thank you. Thank you. So can I have a show of cards for those voting in favour, please? Red cards nice and high. Thank you. $44, thank you. And for those who aren't residents and don't have red cards, can I have a quick show of hands of those who are in favour, please? Nine. 12. Super, thank you. Do we have any red card holders who are against this motion, please? If we do, can you show your cards clearly now? I see none. And can I have a show of hands for those people who are against the motion who don't have red cards, please? I see none. Are there any abstentions? One abstention. Okay, thank you. We have another motion carried, so it's therefore resolved that this town meeting records. The meeting calls on the District Council and the Town Council to commit to working together with community and other interested representatives to secure the Stratford Park Lido as an open, accessible and safe, higher quality, developing over time outdoor pool for the benefit of everyone. Thank you. That's the second motion passed. Six. We'll be almost halfway through, and it very much depends on how quickly you read yours out, Lucas. So the next motion is from you. Could I ask you to read your motion, please?
I'll see it from here, but I want the District Council to make ample staff and financial resources available to facilitate the transition to community ownership. Yeah.
Thank you. To public ownership. So Lucas calls on this meeting to request that District Council makes ample resources, both human and financial, available for the transition to public ownership of the Lido. Do we have any comments or questions on that motion, please? Yes. Are we able to ask the District Council to do that?
Motion?
You are able to pass the motion, and we are able to pass that on to the District Council, but they are not obliged to work in accordance with the motion.
Okay.
But it has power in the fact that you have suggested the motion if it gets passed.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask whoever asked that question a point of clarification? It's currently in public ownership. Do you mean into community ownership? Okay, so technically it's in public ownership at the moment, but you're talking about transferring to a community asset transfer, and just community or some sort of hybrid? Because this is, you should probably do it just as 100% community ownership, because that might be instructive. But I would put an amendment to say there's something about having a sensible discussion about the different types of ownership model rather than it being presented as binary.
Okay.
It's up to the community in the end to decide that.
So as a community or hybrid ownership model, would that be right? Yeah, a community or, yeah, okay. I see you had a card there, but did those words literally just come out of your mouth, Caroline?
That's my card.
Yes. Okay, that's fine. All right, are there any other questions? I've got one here.
Yeah, would you consider amending that to after essential works have been carried out, so that it's handed to the community having been repaired?
Would you agree to an amendment to have that to say after appropriate remedial works have been completed? Is that right? Thank you. Yes?
You're getting your steps in tonight, that's for sure. Just a slight, that last amendment, I think, kind of goes out of kilter with the rest, because we're asking them to make ample resources, human and financial, available after the appropriate remedial works have been completed. So there's a semantic problem with the motion, that's all.
Okay, so if we put a
Fix. Can I propose something I think will fix it? If we said rather than after appropriate remedial works has been completed, something like including ensuring appropriate remedial works. Would that make sense? Would you?
Including ensuring.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that? Yeah. Mindful of time. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on this one before I move to a vote? I can't see any hands. Can't see anything. All I can see is that light. Okay. So, do we have a seconder, please? Yeah, super, thank you. Caroline seconds that. The motion has been proposed and seconded for a call on this meeting to request that the District Council makes ample resources, both human and financial, available for the transition to community or hybrid model ownership of the Lido, including ensuring appropriate remedial works have been completed. Can I see a show of red cards for those people who are in favour of this motion, please? Nice and high. $26. Thank you. There's a charge coming by the sounds of it. And for those who don't have red cards, nothing would surprise me tonight, don't have red cards, a show of hands in support, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 9. Thank you. Do we have any objections to the motion at all? Show your cards nice and high. I can't see any. Okay, and those without cards, if you object, place your hand nice and high for me, please. No. And are there any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can see. Is that everybody? Yeah, 5. Thank you. The motion is carried. So they will call upon this meeting to request that the District Council makes ample resources, both human and financial, available for the transition to community or hybrid model ownership of the Lido, including ensuring the appropriate remedial works have been completed. Thank you. Can we go to the next motion, please? This one is from, is that Eli Parry? Eli Parry, are you here? Hello. Could you read your motion, please?
Yes. This meeting calls for a commitment going forward for an inclusive and empowered participatory process with the community around the management of our assets, beginning with the Lido, to make them not only appropriate and accessible, but sustainable and resilient.
Thank you. Do I have any questions about that motion, please, or comments that you'd like to make? I can't see any hands. Oh, yes.
I'd just like to say this is really this is beyond the scope of this evening. This is about the Lido. This feels like this is beyond the scope, and I don't feel I've had enough. We have the information or anything to vote on this motion really tonight.
Okay. No, I understand that. So you can abstain from it if you want to. In reality, questions can be asked about anything that relates to the town. So I take your point. Do we have any other comments?
Could I make a comment?
Yes.
I just wanted to say the point about accessibility is really important, and there was money put in a budget
a couple of years ago for some accessibility improvements, which I don't quite know what happened there, so I would really welcome this.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this one? Yep.
Because a lot of these motions are identifying great ideas into the future, just mention that one of the things we have at Wootton Pool is that all the processes that we try and do, you know, any renovation or improvement, we always put it through the filter of safe, community enterprise, high quality, indefinitely ongoing, and fun. And actually that really works well.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have any amendments then for this motion. Do I have a seconder, please? I do at the back. Super. Okay, so we have a proposal. This meeting calls for a commitment going forward for an inclusive and empowered participatory process with the community around the management of our assets, beginning with the Lido, to make them not only appropriate and accessible, but sustainable and resilient. For those of you with red voting cards, can I ask you to hold them nice and high for me now, please? If you agree with the motion, of course. We've done one or two of these, I think. 25. Thank you. And those without voting cards that are in support of the motion, can I ask you to show your hands, please? Eight. Thank you. Can I see a show of cards for anybody who objects to this motion, please? I can't see any. And a show of hands for anybody who objects. I still don't see any. No? Okay, thank you. And do we have any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, I can see. Thank you. 4, and a show of hands for abstentions? 1. Thank you. Okay, so for this one, the motion has been carried. This meeting calls for a commitment to ongoing for inclusive and empowered participatory process with community around the management of our assets, beginning with the Lido, to make them not only appropriate and accessible, but sustainable and resilient. Thank you. Our next, please. This one is from Ben.
Thanks. So mindful of the comments on the last resolution, I think this is also slightly wider, but is based on experience from the situation with the Lido that we've all had. So I'd like to propose that the meeting calls on SDC to publish details of the condition and financial position of other assets that it holds in Stroud to enable the community to do any preparatory work it might need to be required to protect them in the future, given what we've heard about the mid-term financial position of the council tonight.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on that motion, please? I have one here.
No, I think this is a very appropriate motion from Ben. It's been a point of frustration, I think, for pretty much all the councillors on the town council, that our attempts to try and engage with the district council over what kind of assets might be available. And I emphasise might. We understand that the district council is in a moving situation. It's not entirely in control of. The government is controlling the process of local government reorganisation, not the district. And that budgets are tight because of the changes in fair funding formula. Our attempts to try and get an idea of what assets might be in danger that we might be interested in without necessarily committing ourselves to anything beforehand. And I think this is something I think all of us, regardless of whatever party affiliations we may have privately, I think probably feel very strongly that this is something that the district council really ought to start playing some ball with us on.
Thank you. Yes, Chloe.
I recognise that frustration, and Heath and I have already engaged in an opening conversation to find a date to start those conversations. So I would expect that in the next couple of weeks we will start that process.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other? No other questions? No? Okay, do we have a seconder then, please? Yeah, oh, 2 seconders. Right, you're going to have to fight it out amongst yourselves. Who's going to... Yeah, okay, that's fine, thank you. So we have a proposer and a seconder and no fight. Sorry. I mean, it's not like I didn't try. I wanted to be internet famous and everything. This is going up on YouTube. So can I ask for a show of your red cards nice and high, please, for those people who are in support of this motion to call upon the District Council to publish details of the condition and financial position of all of its assets in Stroud to enable community groups to prepare for any requirements to protect them, given the Council's mid-term position. 32. Thank you. And those without voting cards who are in support, can I ask you to clearly show your hands nice and high for me, please? Seven. Thank you. Can I have a show of red cards for those who are against the motion, please? No, don't see any. And a show of hands for those who are against the motion. Okay. Am I supposed to dance at this point? And can I see any abstentions, please? 1, 2... And hands for abstentions? Can't see any. Okay, thank you. Then this motion is passed that the meeting calls upon the District Council to publish details of the condition and financial position of all of its assets in Stroud to enable community groups to prepare for any requirements to protect them, given the Council's mid-term position. Thank you. Can we have the next motion? Is this the last one? This is the last one. Yay. This is from Mick Fealty.
For me, a couple of times before, I'm a town councillor representing Valley Ward. I'm also a father and a grandfather of children who've used the Lido in the past. What I would say was I was prepared to come to this meeting with a motion of no confidence in the District Council. I think I've heard enough goodwill coming from the panel, coming from the leadership. I do have some questions. I've heard time frames that go from 3 to 4 weeks or as late as the 26th of June. I'm trusting that Caroline and her team will keep the fate of the District Council's well,
all of
that's
us.
not making
All
any
of
sense.
us.
I think it's been a hard watch for those of us outside the District Council. We've seen 2 committee meetings, quite fraught, quite difficult, some degree of confrontation to try, both from the public and I think from the Labour group on the town council. But I have to say, I think tonight the leadership has proved that they should have our trust and support. However, I think what would enhance that trust and support is, and I now will read the proposal, so I propose that the Town Council take over the facilitation, management and oversight of the Lido working group to bring active stakeholders groups together with a view to securing the rapid, and I think time as well as money is critical here, the rapid yet safe reopening of the Lido at the earliest possible responsible opportunity, facilitating meetings of stakeholders to plan a robust and prosperous future for the Lido for years to come.
Thank you. Do I have any comments or questions about that motion? Got one at the back.
Thank you. I think it's an understandable motion, but I think we have to take account of the fact, as we said earlier on, that the Lido is used by people from much further than Stratford Town Council boundaries. So I think if we're going to propose this, we need to justify that to Keynes Cross, Rodborough, Brimscombe, etc., etc.
Okay. So do you have an amendment to that?
Not as such. I think it makes an amendment quite difficult.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Chloe.
I just observed that with the earlier motion, which was, I think, broadly supported by the room, was an ask that the District Council work towards community ownership after necessary repairs have been done. That, for me, implies that ownership would stay in the District Council probably for the majority of the period while the District Council still exists. And it would be strange for a working group about an asset owned by the District Council to not be run by the District Council, because only the District Council can make its officers do things. Having said that, all of our panels and groups and committees and working groups do choose their own chairs. So the stakeholders in the room ultimately will be the people who choose the chair of that meeting, and then that will be respected, and that person will shape the agenda alongside officers.
Okay.
Could I just make a comment also that as it's proposed at the moment, the working group is not about the reopening of the Lido this summer. That's a piece of work going on already. The working group, I mean, you could as it's proposed at the moment, the working group is about looking at the future of the Lido beyond this summer, with reports to it on, updates on the work going on this summer.
Okay. But the terms of reference for that working group are actually due to be set a week today, aren't they? And so the terms of reference could actually change. Okay. So do you have any requests for amendments to this motion, or are you just making comments?
No, I'm just making comment, and I'm not sure, since I don't live in the parish, whether I can make an amendment anyway. I can't vote.
Well, we can fight about that in a minute, but it might somebody might agree with it and propose it.
propose to make any comment on your motion, but I'm just observing that this town council will be a very valued stakeholder in that group, but that it might mechanically just not work for it to be the chair.
Okay.
But up to you what you choose to ask for.
Thank you. Can I take your question first, and then I will come back to
So I'm on that working group, I think, at the moment, but...
oh, are you? I didn't know that.
Well, I was asked if I wanted to be, and I've put myself forward, but presumably I'm very happy for as the makeup as it is. I'm just wondering if it's worth just reiterating what the makeup of that working group is quickly.
So officers, town council officers and members, a representative from the MP's office, Friends of the Lido and Save Our Lido Stroud. That's the opening bid for membership, but if it becomes apparent that other people need to be members, we're absolutely open to that.
And just to clarify, I'm a town councillor, but I'm assuming that other town councillors could be on that group as well.
Actually, I was going to email Heath about this. It was on my to-do list today. I didn't. But I think the representation from the town council, as the working group's currently conceived, though again in terms of reference to be discussed next week, should come from the town council. So yeah, Liz, you have sort of stood in for next week's meeting, but really it's beyond that. Its representation should be decided. So may I ask you now, Heath? It should be on your agenda for next week's meeting. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, just a clarification. Just, Chloe, I wasn't suggesting that we take over the running of anything other than the working group itself, not the actual facility. That may not have been clear in the way that I've crafted the motion or part of the preamble. But no, absolutely, it stays with District Council. I think all I was trying to address is the deficit of trust that we've had with the changing story about what the reality was here, and that we might be able to step in and help fill that credibility gap by just being seen to manage that process independently of the district. So it's a helpful suggestion. It's not necessarily, I mean, trust with the public is absolutely critical for all our democratic institutions, and that's really my motivation for putting it together.
So for clarity, what you're saying is the arrangement of the meeting, the assembly of the meeting, the facilitation of the meeting and the minutes of the meeting, the stakeholders don't change outside of the stakeholders agreeing that. The ownership does not change the result of doing that. It's just the administrative body for the facilitation of the meeting. Is that what you're proposing? Thank you.
Yeah, and okay, thank you. And as Chloe said, it will be actually for next week's meeting to agree terms of reference. So I guess that would come under.
Okay. So do we have any other comments or questions on this one? Can you?
May or may not help. I'm just wondering whether it might be worth, if Mick thinks so, carrying this motion over to our council meeting and perhaps refining it in the meantime.
Well, that would happen in any event if we pass it.
Yes, but yeah. I just think it feels like it may need some adjustment in view of what the comments have been. So, just my thought.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, do I have any other comments or questions? Okay, do I have a seconder for this motion, please? Super, thank you. You got that one? So for the last time this evening, the motion has been proposed and seconded. So I will now put the motion to a vote. And the motion is the Town Council take over the facilitation, management and oversight of the Lido working group, bringing the active stakeholder groups together with a view to securing the rapid yet safe reopening of the Lido at the earliest responsible opportunity, and facilitating meetings of stakeholders to plan a robust and prosperous future for the Lido for years to come. I don't need this, do I? I've got a big mouth anyway. So, can I ask for a clear show of red cards of those that are in favour of this motion, please? $15, thank you. And a show of hands for those people who are in favour who don't have a voting card. 1, 2, 2. Thank you. Can I have a show of red cards for those people who are against the motion, please? 4. 5. Thank you. 5. And a show of hands for those who don't have red cards who are against the motion, please. 3. Thank you. And finally, do we have any abstentions? $14. Thank you. And anyone wants a show of hands for abstentions who don't have a red card? Can't see any. Oh, one at the back at least. 1. Thank you. That's carried. That motion is carried. So we will take to our town council meeting that the town council take over the facilitation, management and oversight of the Lido working group, bringing the active stakeholder groups together with a view to securing the rapid yet safe reopening of the Lido at the earliest responsible opportunity, and facilitating meetings of stakeholders to plan a robust and prosperous future for the Lido for years to come. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the evening. So I thank you all for coming this evening. Minutes of the whole meeting will be made available on Stroud Town Council's website at stroudtown.gov.uk, as will the meeting recording. And I also confirm that the Town Council will consider the matter at its next meeting in a week's time at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, the 27th of April at the Congregational Church here in Stroud. I would like to thank again our wonderful moderator, to our panel and all of you for coming this evening, and I wish you all a safe travel home and good night. Now I want chips. Right.